Welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the czar of the virtual background, the one and only Pro GK Academy, Omar Zeenni. Love it, dude.
Okay.
The Wi-Fi is looking strong.
Hey, starting off strong. Let's not jinx it, all right?
I definitely don't want to jinx it. And the reason that Omar's got this incredible green and white background, which are two of my favorite colors because I absolutely love what's going on there with the crown thing, is because we have Real Betis goalkeeper Emily Dolan on the show. What's up? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
I love the casual thing you got going on right now. It's only like, 11 o'clock. So in Spain terms, like this is, just getting your day going, right?
Yeah, I mean, most people are going out to dinner right now. I'm not in that crowd. I'm like in bed by 10, but with our preseason schedule, This is about when we're getting home. So this is fine.
See, that's like the craziest thing about like the whole Spanish lifestyle and everything like that. Because I always thought about that when I'm watching like La Liga games. And Omar, I don't know if that ever came up with you. You're like, dude, that game's starting at like 10 o'clock at night. Like aren't people falling asleep? Why are they not falling asleep on the pitch? Like, how do you guys do this? Why is my voice going up like that?
You can cut that part out, but no. I mean, I had a friend who played was for FC Tulsa, and because of weather issues and all that stuff, he played a game recently. I think last week that ended at 2 a.m. So he was just telling me that it's just like everything that you could think of in terms of how weird things get. You just have to kind of normalize it as much as you can. And unfortunately, I mean, I went to Europe 2016 for the Euros, and like Emily said, we started off our nights going to dinner at like 9:30, 10, which to here would be like unimaginable. Like I'm getting older, so I'm already home by going to sleep. I'm getting ready for my training sessions the next day. But in Europe, it's completely different, which again, I love.
No, I mean, like, was that an adjustment period for you, Emily? And then we're going to kind of get into kind of, your whole journey there. So like, kind of why don't we just kind of go into that right now, because everyone's kind of like, okay, so what is this American doing over in Spain? How the heck did this happen? Is there some sort of like some sort of exchange program that we don't know about with Real Betis and like American goalkeepers? Like, what the heck? So kind of explain that whole journey. Like how did you end up going up against Barcelona and Atletico Madrid and all these like world famous, storied franchises?
Yeah, it's a story. Wouldn't say it's the most linear of stories. But born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware. Played club there my whole life, kind of for just a neighborhood club. Ended up playing Division I soccer for about a mid-major program down in Florida. Was set to actually go to medical school, and then I'm kind of looking at the timeline and everything. I'm like, I only have a small window to like give this a shot. If nothing happens, nothing happens. So I played semi-professionally for Lancaster Inferno, and my parents came with this it must have been from like the 90s video camera, like one of those real boxy ones. And like, it's the worst quality video, but they tried.
Wait, hold on. Like the old school with like the VHS tape, like that kind of stuff?
Oh, no, not that old. It had one of the flippy like screen things. No. It's not Total Dinosaur. It's like a little after that.
I'm just thinking of like Amy Poehler in Mean Girls when she's like, filming what's her name? The girls doing like the Santa Claus dance, like with the camera and everything. I'm envisioning that.
Yeah, honestly, like it probably to me at the time looked like that, but no, it was a little better than that. So yeah, I didn't have an agent. I didn't really have any connections. So I sent my highlight film and my CV out to just anyone on the internet that I could find, basically. Ended up with a pretty random opportunity for a top division team in Italy, San Zaccaria. I think now they go by Ravenna Women. So did my first season there. After that, decided I wanted to try something a little more. I wanted an opportunity to play at a higher competition level, I suppose. And so an opportunity came up for me to play in Poland for a Champions League team, Medyk Konin. So next year was there. Had the opportunity to play against Lyon in the first round of Champions League, which, I mean, by the scoreline went terribly, but it was a very fun experience.
Hold on, you've got some awesome highlights from that. We're going to go over some of those highlights in a little bit.
Oh no. Okay. That was a while ago now, but yeah, that was an eye opener for me. Because I was kind of at that point thinking like, how much do I want to do this? But seeing that level of play for me was like, oh my God, I want to keep doing this. And so I guess that gave me enough of leverage to find my way into Real Betis. I signed, and then after my first year, I signed a 2-year extension, and I've been here ever since.
I absolutely love what you're just saying right there, because Omar and I, we stress this. There's so many kids out there, and they just assume that, you know, you need to be at the top club, you need to be at the most elite college, you need to be at the, national pool, all this sort of stuff to get any sort of opportunities, and you're just your showcase right there that if you put in the work, if you put in the discipline, and and you become a better player, and you keep improving, and you get yourself out there, that you can make your dreams a reality, and Omar, I know you stress this on your channel all the time to kids.
Yeah, no, I think again, it's about self-awareness. I'm sure Emily understands that. Just as understanding who you are. And I even posted something today about, if you were to be honest with yourself and have someone draw up, or you were in the opposing coach's head of, hey, what does a scouting report look like on me? What would they say about my deficiencies? Where could we expose errors? And I think a lot of kids, they don't go through that process of kind of being self-aware and understanding where they fall and where their place is in football. And I think once they realize, and once they're self-aware of like, you know what, I may not be the starter at UCLA, but maybe in the past few years you could have been, but maybe I need to go to a UC Davis like me, going to UC Irvine, go to schools that are good, like mid-major, but at the same time, you're probably going to get most of those minutes, and you can have a much bigger growth period, so that once you get 22 and 23 and you want to step into the professional level, at least you have games and you have experience to draw from. And a lot of kids just think that they have to go to the best school or the best places. I'm not saying discouraging, don't go there, but be realistic. If you're not going to play, I'd rather go to a mid-major school at the same time, really develop myself. And then,
the freezing started once again.
No.
Say it again. Yeah, it did. I don't know what's going on.
What was the last thing that you heard?
Something about a mid-major school, and something about don't get discouraged or something like that. I don't know.
Well, you just summarized it there, but yeah, that's what it would be, is just understanding, being realistic with where you're at, and at the same time too, there's a lot more opportunities out there than you think.
Yeah, and I think that right there is a really great point to come across, is that there's a lot more opportunities than you think. I mean, I know, Emily, I knew you grew up a Real Betis supporter your entire life. It was your number one goal to go to Real Betis. Obviously, you've bled green. Now you do, obviously. But by the way, I want to actually talk about that, because now the fact that the Champions League is streaming in the United States and the women's side and everything like that, there's just a heck of a lot more exposure on the European game now to the young girls growing up out here. And I stress to all of the young players right now who are watching this or listening to the podcast, to check out those teams, check out those players. It's not, there's so many opportunities out there, and if you're like Emily and you want to make it happen, you're going to find those opportunities. So let's speaking of opportunities, this is the reason that you made the opportunities happen, is because you're really good at this. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this show for this, is tracking the ball in traffic. That's today's topic, guys. Basically following that ball all the way through. Emily, for some of the parents that might be listening right now, they may or may not be your parents who are listening right now. Why don't you summarize for some of the novices what, in your words, we mean by tracking the ball?
Yeah, sure. For me, tracking the ball kind of encompasses a wide range of situations in a game. I think the most common context that I use it in is services into the box, whether that be a flighted ball or a cutback coming along the end line. It can also be a through ball to try to spring a forward free from midfield, or even just tracking the ball as it's traveling across the 18 as the opposing team's passing it around. So for me, tracking the ball is about figuring out what the most likely path of the ball is going to be, finding that ball line, and then making decisions based on that ball line, while also considering external factors like deflections or weather or a million other things, and also your strengths and comfortabilities as a goalkeeper as well. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the whole thing about weather and extemporaneous circumstances that like you can't control. Omar, how many times have you had kids come up to you and be like, well, the sun was in my eyes when I was tracking that ball, or like it was raining or whatever, and you're like, dude, like that's something that I can't coach for you, right?
Yeah, and I think we talk about it all the time. It's just like encouraging problem solvers and not allowing, circumstances that you can't control, that out of your hands, to differentiate the way you play the game and the way you play the position. You got to approach it the same way every single time you step on the field. And of course, like you said, if there's, crazy wind coming, you're probably going to have to, track the ball and get to your spot a lot faster than you would if there was no wind and the ball is, hanging in the air. So again, adjusting and understanding what you're up against in, let's say, warm up or whatever it is, and putting your goalkeeper coach in a position to say, hey, look, or me as a goalkeeper coach, putting the goalkeeper and telling them, look, we're going to expose these little things where a lot, chip balls in so you can see it, the sun, and then find a solution in warm up. So then when we step into the game, second nature. Yeah.
No, that I like the fact that you're bringing up the second nature thing, because Emily, I think that's one of the keys when you're talking about tracking that ball, that I like about you is like, I think it's, look, obviously it was a little bit more difficult, your journey and everything like that. And because of that, you had to get so many reps at a certain level in order to be able to play at that level. Like how important is that when you're tracking that ball to make sure that you've got that muscle memory of going through these scenarios over and over again?
Yeah, I think reps are everything. Because I'm not sure how many times you're going to see the same service, exactly the same service every single time. So you start identifying patterns the more that you see them. What is the spin on the ball? Is the person, crossing the ball from the end line or 20 meters out or 40 meters out with their left or right foot? And as you just keep seeing these patterns over and over again, your decision-making is going to become cleaner, as well as you're also developing that range in yourself. A big thing that we try to encourage in our team and in prior teams in Europe that I've been in is really being brave and really being fearless with that decision, because that's the only way that you're going to kind of find those limits, especially in pressure situations, because that always makes it a little more complicated when there's that idea of, if I don't get this ball, then I'm in trouble.
Yeah, by the way, Keith Duncan right now just posted, and he said, Gingy got thousands of reps with crosses over the years, and good delivery was crucial, and small ball training.
That is an old coach of mine. So yeah, he's right. We'd finish every session with crosses, and it's really true. It's just, you just keep seeing it over and over again, and you start to learn the patterns of what a ball, like an outswinger, is going to look like, an in swinger,
Yeah, no, I think that was just so funny right there, because I was like, geez, I really hope she knows this person right now, as opposed to just like coming up with a nick. Yeah, yo, Gingy got lots of crosses. I used to watch her all the time, and I was like, all right, well, this has gotten awkward now.
First of all, Gingy, like, if that's a stranger calling me that, I don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
But...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, he's a coach.
Oh my gosh. Omar, I want to ask you about this, because, you dealt with this a lot in the college game, which, Emily, I don't know, you probably would attest to this too. Flank service is such a big part of the college game. There's just a lot of flank service over and over and over again. How difficult is it a lot of times for you at the college level, getting youth players who haven't been getting the reps in the youth game because either their teams were too dominant, or they funneled in everything interior, so they never started getting that flank service?
No, that's hard. I mean, I there's not really much of an answer to that, honestly. I think we just say, if you come into a school like Cal State LA, or the school we're at is one of the best teams in the state, obviously, and then the country as well, one of the better teams. So most of the times the teams will build up to the midline or just inside our half, and they can't break down our back four. So they'll start, hitting services into the box to try and get someone who's 6'3", 6'4", an opportunity to knock something down. So, we kind of try to expose the goalkeepers to that as much as we can in training. But if we have goalkeepers that are coming in, most likely we're recruiting ones that show that they have some positivity with crosses, or comfort with those crosses. So we're not bringing people in who we would see on film and be like, you know what, that's probably not going to be somebody who can rely on in our system of play, or the opposing team system of play. So I guess for us, at least, it comes down to recruiting, but it comes to, for me at least, when my sessions, how much can I expose long throw-ins? That's a big one too that we don't talk about a lot. Is that in college I had a teammate who could throw a ball 50 yards, but it was on a there was no air underneath it. It was straight. Then you had somebody else who was on our team from the right side who would come in and he would throw the ball with a little bit more of a loft. So we have to obviously understand who we're playing against and then expose the goalkeepers to as much as we can. But for us, in terms of recruitment, we try to find somebody who can show us that we have peace of mind knowing that we put you in the situations that you can handle it.
Emily, I've got a question for you here, because I don't know about you, but personally, I feel that the more lofted, the more air, and the more time I have underneath a ball, the more difficult in traffic it is for me to track. Do you feel that same way, or do you feel like a driven ball is more difficult?
If you had asked me that question maybe a year ago, I think I would have agreed. That's something we really heavily prioritize in Betis. And I will say, I mean, back to Omar's point, it's really difficult. I wasn't necessarily in a situation from a club perspective outside of training with my goalkeeper coach, Keith.
With Mr. Gingy?
With Mr. Gingy, yes. I didn't really get a whole lot of services into the box as a youth player. I think the way that our team played, it was a lot more funnel them to try to make a through pass or a slip ball. And so I became really great off my line, but that area was certainly lacking. And I really missed those reps in college because I didn't really play very much in college either.
Wait, hold on a second. You didn't play a lot in college, and now you're playing in the champions, like against Champions League champions, like that.
Yeah.
You should be like a documentary or something like that.
Oh, no, not that interesting.
Omar, where's the Pro GK Academy documentary film crew for Emily?
No, I mean it's gonna start coming in now, because we hear these stories, every once in a while on like ESPN and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to like goalkeeping, I think Mike and I were one of the leading people to understanding that there's so many cool stories like yours that don't necessarily get the time of day because they kind of just slipped under the rug. You know what I mean? Okay, another American playing in Europe, great. But you expect them to be like, oh, she plays for Betis, probably had an amazing college career. The assumptions are huge, and I think we need to be the ones with the camera crew, Mike. I think we need to find some investors to allow us to kind of reconfigure that narrative a little bit.
Yeah, when I was doing research and stuff like that, I was looking at all the old national pools, like youth national pools. And I was like, "Where's Emily Dolan? Where's Emily Dolan?"
Never. I had probably, objectively speaking, not a successful college career at all. I think maybe if you added up all the minutes I had over the 4 years, maybe you might hit 2 games worth. Then that's like lucky. That was a fun time, but yeah. So anyway, I like putting that out there because I hear a lot of players who are, especially as a backup goalkeeper, it can be incredibly frustrating. Again, I think Omar put it very well. You have to be very self-critical, and when you are a backup keeper, you have to look for those reps. For example, for the crosses, I would have teammates come and hit crosses outside of training or after training. I would just be like to my roommates, "Hey, can you just come and like hit balls at me?" And you do kind of have to take the ownership of that. But yeah, anyway, back to your other question.
No, wait, were they soccer players or just your roommates? You were just like, "Hey, can you guys strike some balls?" And they're like, "We play hockey." Like,
so I'm not lying. Sometimes they were my teammates, and sometimes they were somebody who played hockey. So you guessed very correctly. Fun facts. That's a different podcast.
This is the best.
But Emily, quick question for you though. Since we're on this topic, some people might even say like there's delusion in somebody who can think that they can play professionally with 2 games, 2 games under the belt. So what allowed you to kind of like go over that like mental, I guess, societal, not pressure to do it, but it's more like, hey, the college system should tell you if you're good enough or not.
Yeah, so for, quick overview, when I first went into my college career, I had a pretty serious injury my first season. And so I think that kind of set the tone for a lot of what the next, 3 years was going to be. I had a fracture in my hip. So that was kind of a rough one. And I don't know, I love the sport. And even when there was difficult moments in college, when maybe I didn't have like the fluffy feelings playing, I'd still go out and do extra trainings because I just deeply loved it. And so when I got to the end of my college career, put quotations on it, I guess it was this feeling of like, if I don't try it, I'm never going to know what would have happened. And if nothing happens out of it, so, okay, I'm in the exact same spot that I'm in right now. Like, what exactly happens? Like, only something good can happen if worst case scenario, I stay where I am. So why not give it a shot, see what happens? Because you're never going to know unless you try it. So, and it worked out for me, and I kind of got lucky.
So I want to talk about how footwork plays into tracking the ball. And Emily, this is now where we're going to start playing some clips of you. Okay. And now you get the world famous Omar Zeenni to break down your film, which is what everybody in the world looks after.
I gotta get myself comfortable here. Hold on.
So this is Betis versus Barcelona. Just Barcelona, just like every average mid-major backup college goalkeeper faces Barcelona. It's a whipped in ball from the outside flank. This is a phenomenal, great track across the goal. So I want to play this for everybody right here. So let me find this here. And I am going to share the screen. All right, everyone can see that? All right, here we go. So as you can see, simple ball played into the box. Look at this track. Oh, and across like that. I love the fact. Now, did you get a touch on that ball?
Yeah, I saved that.
Okay. This, because I wasn't quite sure, because it's one of those where, like, even if you didn't get a touch on the ball, you are the reason that goal was saved, regardless of whether you got a touch on the ball right here. I want everyone to see, look at the eyes here after the step. So it's the strike, look at the starting position, and it's the track. Look at the eyes, look at the chin, and look at that footwork all the way. A lot of kids give up. They stop right there, and then they try to go for a play. You went all the way through into the challenge and came across like that. I think that's world class. And I think you showcase why you can play at that level. Omar, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, the only thing I can add is from the technical side of things, if you look at her hips right when that ball gets served, most people will waste a step by stepping towards the ball and kind of misreading it. Right away, you can tell her hips are open, which is what I like. You can, from a young age, we're taught be neutral so you can see the ball and you can see what's going on behind you. And right then and there, it's textbook. She's opened up a little bit. So now her step doesn't have to go forward. She already has that pathway because her left leg is slightly open. And now all she needs to do is cross step across with the right leg. So she doesn't waste any movements or any times. And I think if you were to waste the movement or waste any time, then you're going to be, in emergency mode. And I think, yes, you may have been in emergency mode here because it's a ball that's going to the far post, a very, very well hit ball, but you put yourself in the best position possible to actually make a play on this. And I think it was, superb.
Well, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So Emily, can you kind of walk us through this since you experienced it, kind of what was going on in your mind as that ball was played in? And I love what Omar was saying about the efficiency of the movement. I think a lot of kids, and I don't know how you feel, waste a lot of movement that is unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I think sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I think back to Emily's point earlier about a lot of kids, when it comes to flighted service, their initial instinct because of their parents or their coach or they're trying to impress somebody is I'm coming out for this ball no matter where it goes. So they don't ever give themselves that half second to, like you said, we talk about Mike, delay, and then from there, make the right, I guess, decision or judgment, because their preconceived idea is I have to make a play on this no matter where the ball goes. And that's what we see sometimes. People are overzealous, over eager. They step forward and that ball ends up behind them. Then they waste that movement. So again, if we can kind of shift the narrative or talk to coaches who are field player coaches or parents of like, hey, don't put so much pressure on the kids. Let them see the play and then react to what they see, versus having them come in and say, look, today I need 4 or 5 big plays from you. They're in the 90th minute. They've only made 2 plays. That last ball coming in, they're saying, you know what? Coach told me I got to make a play. So this one I'm coming for. So I think that's really important. And so, yeah, kind of bring that up.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience with coaches.
Oh,
They're like, yeah. I'm like, we need a minimum, and they give you some arbitrary number, but the ball's at the other side of the field the whole game. And I'm like, I'm failing. We got a shutout. I don't know. But no, to me, I feel like when it comes to that save in particular and just reading services, a lot of people will kind of look at the end of the clip and see the actual save. But I think, and you see this with De Gea a lot, the details before any movement actually happens is what makes that save possible. And I think that, I've really improved a lot as a goalkeeper with being patient, with recognizing that I'm quick enough. If you have the quick enough feet, you can give yourself the extra half a second to see where the ball is going to go and trust that you're going to get there. Another thing that I've been taught, since being here really, is actually before I come into frame on that video, I'm looking to see where the runner is and kind of taking a snapshot of where that runner is coming. So I kind of already knew someone was coming at the back post. So when you see that flighted service, you kind of already have an idea of where people are. And it's not a guarantee, but it's also not a surprise when you find somebody back there. So it's just more information that you're basing decisions off of. And that's been something that's been really helpful for me.
I love what you just said right there, because it reminds me of a couple of weeks ago when we had Bella Bigsby on from Portland Thorns, and we were talking about, reading triggers. And that is a trigger right there. You're like, okay, that back post runner right there. I'm not going to guess and start going and cheating,
Exactly.
but I have an educated idea of where that service is going to go. And therefore, as long as that mind-body connection is there, I'm going to be able to be ready and to react. Like, Omar, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think again, it's in the details, right? So what Emily just said is something that I think a lot of people may have glossed over, but is one of those things of, okay, she knows she has quick feet and she can track that ball and recover. So giving herself that half second to see the ball and then react is huge. So again, we go back to self-critique and self-analysis, understanding what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. If I'm a slower goalkeeper, maybe my starting position for a through ball or that ball coming into the half, I got to be a little bit higher to not have that weakness exposed. But like Emily just said, she has quick feet. So she understands that, look, for me to get to that far post, probably going to be a lot faster than other people. So I could probably take a chance by letting the play pause for one more second and then making my movement. And I think, again, that's huge.
Yep. Emily, why do you think that is? That so many young goalkeepers, and we talked about this a few weeks back when we had Ian Joyce on, in regards to delay, right? Of the delaying of the movement. Why do so many young goalkeepers overrun the ball? Do you think it's because coaches tell them they have to make a play on the ball and so they get overzealous?
I think that might be part of it. I think it's rooted in a good intention. You want the ball. And I think that we've, just as kind of a football community, have kind of just drilled this idea of you need to get it at the highest point. And so I think goalkeepers kind of get a little bit nervy. They instantly take that first step forward because they've been told, I need to catch it high. The reality is there's times where, giving yourself an extra second, you're going to make up that time. It's not going to take you very long to take those steps. And I would rather a goalkeeper wait and then take confident movement as opposed to taking a step in the wrong direction. And then you have to readjust to your steps. And I think a lot of young goalkeepers lose that because they've only been heard, you need to attack the ball at the highest point. And I don't know if there's a lot of coaches who are willing to pull the goalkeeper aside and be like, hey, I love that instinct. That's a great instinct to have, but give yourself a second too,
Omar, would you rather have to coach that out of a kid, that overzealousness, rather than having to force it out of them?
I'd rather coach it out of them, honestly. I think, again, having a goalkeeper that's eager to be involved in the game is super important. And I like, even myself, when I was growing up, I had ADD, and I remember one time I was like looking at something going on the sideline, and I think they almost
was this one of those 8-0 games? One of the 8-0 games? Or?
It was one of the early games. It was one of the early games where my parents were like, "Why are you like reacting to things so late? Oh my God, you're looking at like butterflies, or like someone selling ice cream on the side. You're like, okay, what flavor do you want?" I was always thinking about something else, and I remember my parents were like, "Look,
this is why you were a fat kid. You were looking at the ice cream."
I was, yeah.
Oh, dude,
I was already. I know. I was already planning. I was already planning what was going on, but no, yeah. I think then I started realizing, okay, my parents said, look, you love to talk at home, but come to the game, you don't talk very much. So you figure out something that you can actually use to your advantage. So I said, okay, I love talking. I have ADD. So why don't I communicate more? So I started communicating a lot more. Then I was like, well, even if I talk a lot, I'm still not as involved as I want to be. How about I get better with my feet so that I could show for the ball, so that I'm not, zoning out as much. So I always found ways. So that I think by the time I hit 14, 15, I was like, okay, I want to be involved a lot. And my goalkeeper coach, like one time pulled me aside and said, look, we love that you want to be involved and you want to show people that you can hit a ball 40 yards to somebody. But at the end of the day, what's best for the team? We need you to play the ball out of the back. And that's how we're building this team. So I was like, okay, but he was able to kind of like pull back on things that I wanted to do versus, hey, Omar, we need someone he's going to come out for the ball, for the crosses. We need someone who's going to be a sweeper keeper. We need someone who's going to do XYZ playing out of the back. And I was like, well, that's not me. So it's, for me, I'd like to have somebody that I can kind of like pull the reins back a little bit on, but at the same time, they're not, I guess their instinct is to always want to be involved versus somebody that doesn't want to be involved. And I have to be like, hey, we need you to do this, this, and this. When really, I guess that's when the scouting comes in of like, oh, you know what? This probably wasn't a good fit from the start.
Yeah. Emily, is that one of the kind of like those like major mistakes you've kind of seen like with goalkeeper coaches like over the years in regards to like when they're teaching kids how to track is like, you know, they say things like make a play or, you know, like go get the ball or whatever. And it's so vague and it's so general that the kids really don't understand the scenario at all.
Yeah, I think vague and generalized is a good way to put it. I can only speak to my experience, obviously. But I think that as a youth player, I think I would have benefited a lot from just bringing up the word decision and decision making in training, to understand that there is no, you just go get the ball. You take information in and you make a decision and then you confidently stick with it. And then afterwards you analyze, was that the right decision? Was that the incorrect decision? And did you execute the decision correctly, whether the end result was correct or not? Again, I think it's great that goalkeeping as a whole is moving towards more, we talk about the modern goalkeeper, like a lot of involvement. And like, I personally love that, you know, fits my style. But I also think that it's a new enough concept to where the language hasn't necessarily been worked out to most efficiently deliver that information to youth players quite yet.
Yeah. So Omar, what are some words, what are some buzzwords we can use so that because a lot of young coaches are listening right now, and I think they need to hear this stuff from somebody like a high level player like Emily is telling you like it is at that level, and somebody like a high level coach like yourself as well too. And if they hear it from you guys, maybe it'll start resonating a little bit more. If you want to.
Sorry that I freeze. Okay, no, no, no. I think again, if I had more time, I'm more of a thinker, so I need time to think about things to kind of articulate it the way I want to think about it. So if I don't want to give people like a list of just kind of off my head.
Do you want to come back to it later then? Let's go to this play. Let's go to this play of Emily, because Emily, you were talking about making a decision, right? And living with that decision and following through. So I want to play this play right here on here. I see the LYO right there. I've heard of that team before. Omar, have you heard of that team before?
Oh, I sure have. Yeah, I sure have.
I think I know what's happening in this one. This is going to hurt me, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. I know what this is.
All right. So here comes the service into the box here. Look at that starting position. Wham! Oof, man. Talk about having no fear right there. You live to tell another day though. And man, that was, but hey, you followed all the way through on that. Why don't you walk us through this play?
So the scouting report on them, I mean, Lyon is a team that loves to serve balls into the box. So that whole week and a half beforehand, we were doing all the services. Noticed the in-swinger, felt that I had a clear path to the ball. The girl who was on me in the beginning of the clip kind of moved out, really had a clear area, but I think that's Khadija actually, who's running in. Saw her coming in, wasn't sure if there was going to be contact, so I decided to go with the punch. And I was right about the contact. My tailbone was not the same for like a week after that.
Oh, I've had one of those. Was it one of those where like it kind of like felt all numb?
I got up and I was like kind of like walking like a duck a little bit. Yeah, that's me on the ground, just like
I've been there before. I've been there before. Omar, you been in that position before?
Oh, I sure have. I mean, even more when I played basketball, like I think a year ago, I had a really bad fall where I went up to the rim and the guy just nailed me and I landed right on my tailbone and my back. And it was just it was rough.
Yeah.
What I love about this is that you just brought up the in-swinger, because personally in a situation like that, a lot of young keeper coaches will tell a kid to try to hold that ball. And you recognized the pressure on you, and you sure as heck made the right decision because you got blindsided right there to go with that box out. But notice how it wasn't just how many young goalkeepers just kind of like, you know, this thing. I don't know what that is, but open palm and just, I'm going to touch the ball. And then you're not protected in any way whatsoever. But because you went in with power and you went in with strength there, even though you got clocked, it could have been a heck of a lot worse, right?
Yeah, I think it goes, I mean, especially for services in the air like that, you do as a goalkeeper understand there's a risk that you're going to get blindsided. I think that's something that you just eventually kind of accept as a reality of the job. But also the harder you go into it and the more confident you make that decision, at the end of the day, that is a good form of protection. Because if you go in soft, that person's going to come in with all of that momentum. So, I mean, make the decision and go is kind of my mentality.
Yeah. And one thing I want to bring up with you, Omar, if you want to break this down a little bit, is that I love the fact, Emily, is that you got air under the ball, because a lot of goalkeepers will hit that ball direct because they're getting blindsided. They're coming in and they'll come across like this, but you got under the ball and still got enough lift to get that out of danger. I think it's a very good play. Again, backup goalkeeper in college, guys, at a mid-major going up against Lyon. As Kevin Garnett says, anything is possible. So I just wanted to share that. Go ahead, Omar.
No, I think again, whenever you do make a decision or you're deciding in that position, hey, the traffic's coming in and most likely I'm going to have to punch. It's understanding where you want to locate the ball, how high do you want to do it. And from there, obviously, you're probably going to get hit. So going into that with the full, I guess, knowledge that this needs to be a good service or good, a good distance outside the box, just in case I do get pummeled, referee doesn't call it, I have the chance to at least get myself back up because I put in a good distance and a good, good height, trajectory, all that. So I can get back to my feet and then make a play on the next shot if it comes back on goal. So again, I think once you've made that decision or it's looking like a clear decision needs to be made, I think the technical stuff, once you've analyzed the tactical, the technical stuff all has to come into play and look like it did here.
Emily, how often do you guys train under that kind of pressure in services, that kind of flank service, that kind of in-swinging service, or different types of scenarios of that service with pressure? Because I think a lot of the problems, a lot of times, especially with youth goalkeepers, is that they do this service in isolation with goalkeeper coaches over and over again. But then when they get in the game, they freeze up. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's definitely a different connotation to it when there's pressure, because you are at it. Especially at my level, anybody can go into a set and look really good on a crossing drill when there's no pressure. It's very comfortable. You have all the time in the world, and you won't necessarily be punished for making an incorrect decision. At Betis, we probably do that about maybe once a week minimum. Obviously, we're trying not to have big contact in training sessions. But fun fact, actually, I'm coming off of an ACL tear, and I had my first major collision last week on a very similar situation as this. So it happens. And I think honestly, if you have that training scenario, it's only going to give your goalkeepers more confidence. Obviously, you don't want injuries, but even if you're doing stuff within your goalkeeping unit and you're introducing contact between goalkeepers, just throwing the idea into their head that, hey, you might go up for a ball and it might be uncomfortable. After a while, you start to understand all right, I can handle myself in the air and I will be fine if there's contact. I think it's really important to add to training, and we do it maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah. Well, maybe soft mannequins. Do a lot of soft mannequin work too, or just with people? We
haven't used the soft mannequins. We either use the hard plastic dummies.
Brave. You're brave.
Yeah, no, we haven't used the soft ones yet. I think my first year we used them a little bit, but the hard ones, or we'll just use people. We'll run in and provide soft pressure onto services.
I want to bring this up right now, Emily, is that in regards to physical attributes, because I think a lot of that comes into play when tracking a ball. Omar brought up earlier in regards to your feet, you have quick feet. That is an attribute that you have that allows you to maybe delay a little bit longer than maybe somebody who's a little bit more slow-footed. So do you believe that your specific physical attributes play a huge part in how you track a ball versus how somebody else should be coached how to track a ball?
Sure, absolutely. As far as goalkeeper goes, I'm maybe about average height. I'm 5'8", 5'9". those.
I want everyone to hear that right there. Mid-major backup goalkeeper. Now
The
playing
legacy
against
is just-
Barcelona and Lyon. I mean, seriously, like we are doing a documentary. Like it's just getting better and better. Next thing we know, like, you didn't know how to catch until, a couple years ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I tried basketball for a couple years and I quit because I couldn't catch the ball. That's actually a true story. But anywho,
what genie granted you wishes? I just want to know how this happened.
I ask myself that almost every night when I go to bed. I still don't know, but I'm not going to question it because I love it. So whatever. But yeah, no, I think that's a huge thing. Goalkeepers who are maybe a little bit shorter than me, but who can jump a lot higher than me. Goalkeepers who are a lot taller than me. Like when I first came here, there was a Japanese international goalkeeper who played for her national team. Obviously, I mean, she was over 6 foot. So she's going to attack a ball much differently than I'm going to, as well as time spent in the gym. Your physical strength, your core strength is huge, your upper body, control of your lower body when you're coming down on landings. I think it all comes into play, and every goalkeeper is going to take those situations differently.
Yeah, I love what you just said there in regards to taking it differently, because Omar, I know that this is something that we've all struggled with as youth goalkeeper coaches, because you'll give a coaching point to a kid, the other kid will hear it and they'll assume that point is for them too. And then all of a sudden that doesn't work for them and you go, oh, blah, 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 and then they get confused. You're like, but you just told that dude this, like, I don't understand. What's going on? How do we express to them that everyone's different?
I mean, again, it's about just giving them the room for error and like the trial and error process. And I think that is a big one too, where I've even said, hey, you try it. I'm going to get a very similar service and I want to see you try it. Let's see if it works for you. And then they realize, oh crap, I'm a lot slower than Emily. That's probably not going to work for me. And I think, again, with the young kids, you almost have to let them voice their opinion and let that opinion build, be able to see, oh, okay, that's the reason why.
Say that again.
That's
Omar,
the reason why.
We lost you for a second. So say that again, because that was a good point. So for the edit.
No, I think again. Okay. So when you have, obviously a young kid who voices an opinion, and in their head, based off the instinct, in their mind, that opinion it should be factored, it should be given a proper answer. In my opinion, you got to say, okay, look, in your head, this is what you think based off of the note I just gave Emily. I'm going to expose you to something very, very similar. You won't know where it's going, but I'm going to hit a service in and I want to see, try those same notes. And again, they realize, hey, I may not have the same feet as Emily. Maybe I'm a little bit taller. So maybe I could sit a little bit deeper because I could catch the ball at a higher point. So I can kind of be a second later than Emily, but my feet aren't as quick as hers. So maybe I need to work on my timing. So you have to let them kind of have the free reign to see if what they instinctively thought was right or wrong. So you put them in that service, and then again, they start answering their own question of like, oh, okay, now I see why coach made that point, not to me. And I think, again, that's the beauty of coaching. You have to allow the patience aspect, which I wasn't very good at, as Mike knows, but understanding as you get younger kids, they're very curious. And the last thing you want to do as a coach is erase that curiosity or make them feel like that curiosity is not valid. So yeah, understanding that's where we need to have the baseline and the kids can figure it out from there.
I love what you said there about the trial and error. And Emily, I mean, is that something that, when you feel like you have, and we've talked a lot of pro goalkeepers on this podcast about that, but like, do you feel that when you have that freedom to make mistakes in training and that trial and error of trying new things, it just lets your game go to another level once you get into a competitive match?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, again, I'm coming off of an injury, and I've had that experience here at Betis where they're like, listen, go in, try stuff, make as many errors as you want. This is training. This is where you figure it out. And I think that it's kind of important to point out that, you would think that if you're making error after error in training, that would be something bad for a goalkeeper's confidence. But the opposite is true. I find that when I'm given that freedom to experiment and honestly just express myself as a goalkeeper, because I think goalkeeping is so fluid. There are certain techniques that are concrete, but how you play the position is so individualized. The more freedom that you have to kind of explore those things, it's going to translate really well to how you play. And at the end of the day, it's how effective can you be at what you do? And if your style is one way and somebody else's style is another way, if you're effective at it, then it's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, no, I think to finish off this point, I kind of want to, I mean, you bring up, professional goalkeepers, for example, Dean Henderson, who's at Sheffield United, or is it Sheffield one? No, Sheffield United, sorry. And he's at Sheffield United, and people are saying, hey, we need to bring him to Man United. He needs to be the number one because De Gea has been, hasn't been playing up to his potential or the big contract, whatever. So it's like a lot of fans are saying, no. He needs to have a few more appearances with another team to iron out all those mistakes so that he understands the decision-making process for a big club like United. Because again, a lot of the decision-making us as goalkeepers do, yes, it's, our instinctive reaction, but also too, it's the narrative in the newspaper. If somebody says Emily's not very good at crosses, you want to prove that right or wrong. So you step into a game and you're trying to do something completely different out of your comfort zone, and it's not comfortable for you and you look bad. And I think there's a reason why, Dean Henderson is playing for Sheffield United before going back to Man United. Then you have Jordan Pickford, who went out when he was with Sunderland. He went on loan 6 times, 6 different clubs, because these coaches and the scouts, they understand that these goalkeepers need to have periods where they're not going to be under scrutiny, and they need to make their mistakes while they're still young, so that once they get them, they're as close to the finished product as they can. They're going to be refining little things here and there, but they're as close to the finished product as they possibly can. So I think that's the important note here for a lot of the goalkeepers, is that we're giving you guys opinions based off of, I've been coaching for 5 years now, Mike, 20 years, Emily, you've been playing for however long professionally now. So you understand that it's a process, but sometimes people can take what we say out of context because it's like, oh, Emily's doing this, this, and this, but people don't understand how long it took you to get to that reality.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Honestly, I think, that's something really important to talk about.
I want to bring this up right now because getting back to the technical aspect is, I think the head position is something that lacks a lot of times. And I think one of the reasons, Emily, why you're able to take that type of contact and live to see another day, even though you get shellacked, is because your head position is such that it's not just, and I try to tell this to young goalkeepers, it's not just about tracking the ball and being clean and everything like that. It's also for safety standpoint. So I want to bring up a play. And we're going to go back to that Lyon match if you're cool with it, right here. So this is going to be in the 90th minute right here. Don't look at the score. Don't look at the score. That is not what we're looking at right now here. So as we see right here, getting set up for the cross, coming in. Look at that track right there. But I want everyone to see that head. So look at Emily's head as that ball comes in right here. See the alignment? It's so aligned and perfect that you're able to get that great play out with that ball. If your head had been slightly turned one direction, you don't get that clean touch, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be, full disclosure, I'm not sure anyone's ever pointed that out to me. But I mean, I guess I've always been told you want to try to keep your body as under control and composed as possible. Any type of flailing outside of your frame is going to set you up for a weakness or something that maybe isn't as efficient as it could be. So,
well, see, Omar, do you see that shape right there? And do you see what I'm talking about in regards to the nose and the chin? How it's there, it's aligned right when you make contact, boom. And I see so many kids, and they're like this.
Yeah, like what Emily said earlier, it's better to be confident with your decision and then go 100% at it and make a big play out of it. And I think right there where we're talking about full alignment and the body, working together in unison and everything going together, I think that's a really good point as well, where again, it's the 95th minute, by the way. So, being assertive and technical at the same time in the 95th minute is a big ask, especially when, you've conceded as many as we've seen here, says 5. So at that point, for me, most people would probably be checked out. So I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing as well to understand the context of when these decisions are made. And I think that's a big one here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Emily, was it one of those type of situations? But I think, is the adrenaline just going? You're just like, I'm going to give everything I got against the, I'm playing against a world-class team right here and I want to prove myself.
Yeah, it was a feeling of, I felt so lucky when we drew them. Everybody else was like, oh my God, like, here we go. But to me as a player, that's such an exciting opportunity to measure yourself against some of the best in the world. And so for me, kind of go into the game knowing, yeah, I mean, this might get a little bit ugly, it might, but take every ball as if it's the first ball that you've seen and make the most of it. And by the end of it, you're going to have a really good measure of exactly what you need to work on as a goalkeeper. It's going to expose every flaw that you have. So really, like, long term, it was a great experience.
Yeah, Mike.
Go ahead.
I just want to add on to that. I think, again, when I've trained a lot of young kids, and I had a girl yesterday, the first 30 minutes of every session, she's always on point. And the last 30 minutes, she's always, her mind goes elsewhere. All the compliments and like good, feedback I'm giving her, I think gets to her head. So I always tell her, like, look, the last 30 minutes, it has to be the same as those first 30 minutes. And what has changed? And she's like, I'm not sure. I think maybe I'm just not as focused. I'm like, well, whether it's your focus, whether it's your tactical awareness, technical ability, you should always have a foundation and a baseline so that if things go to hit the fan, you need to have a place to fall back on where everything gets back to realigned, and then you start making the proper decisions to get your confidence back up. And I just don't think a lot of kids, and like Emily said, whether it's the first minute, 95th minute, you should always have a baseline of where your mindset is, where you are in terms of your just everything, all the mental, physical, psychological has to be aligned so that you finish the game. After that, it's over. But you need to have a baseline so that you understand where to fall back just in case, you're in a last minute situation, your heart's jumping, you're panicking, but then you have that calmness and a reminder of like, I've already prepared for this. I know exactly where I need to be. Just breathe, relax. And I think a lot of that, I guess, understanding is when you are in those situations, don't run away from it, but be fully aware of what your mind is like, what your body's, how it's reacting, so that you can have a solution for it.
Now, Emily, I got a question for you. Was that group play or was that elimination round?
That was elimination round. That was the first round of elimination play.
Wow. So, I mean, I think, personally, one of the things that I like to see in regards to that professional mentality, and I always try to tell young goalkeepers this, is that listen to Emily when people are like, oh, well, you guys drew Lyon, like this is the worst or whatever, and you're like, no, I want that challenge, because like, again, you want to showcase that you can play at that level. So every single minute, every single rep that you get out there, you're going to treat it like it's an opportunity, because you're never going to be able to get those reps again. I mean, again, unless you play against another world-class caliber team like that, and it's only going to make you better for the other teams that you're playing. I want to talk about this because one of the things that I think a lot of young goalkeepers have is difficulty tracking a ball under pressure, not just because of the physical, but the mental, and I think we've showcased a lot with some of your clips right there, how composed you have to be. And like, you have to have that ice water in your veins where you're not worried about what could happen. Because how many kids get past the moment and they go, oh, I'm going to get hit here. Or like, oh, like, that they're going to hit that ball, or like, I'm not going to be able to catch it or whatever. And because of that, they psych themselves out. By the next thing you know, ball's in the back of the net because they psych themselves out of it.
Yeah, I think I've seen, from the coaching I've done and from just what I've seen, I think that fear of making a mistake is one of the biggest hindrances for young goalkeepers. Knowing that, if I go out for a ball and it goes over my head, there's not a whole lot of defending of me for that. I mean, that's pretty a point blank error on me. Same thing with contact. And I think that giving goalkeepers the opportunity to make those errors, as we've talked about, when you're young, and establishing that confidence is really key. But also, even as you get older, you're not going to be right 100% of the time. There's going to be moments where you do read the ball wrong. And I think having that support structure within your team and your coaching staff to say, hey, don't worry about it, we want you to keep going for those balls, I think is really important.
Yeah. Omar, we've talked about it, with sports psychologists and everything like that. I think honestly, one of the reasons why I'm not great at flighted service, I'll be straight up honest, is because of my mental makeup. And I think my first thought goes negative as opposed to positive. And so what are some little tricks that you've given goalkeepers to work that out?
So like I just said a few minutes ago, like understanding that this is all a process. So figuring out, okay, if I'm in a game, and I used to have this where I'm like, okay, I know these teams we're playing against, they have 2 or 3 guys who are their go-to guys to score. And in my head, I was always thinking, okay, what can I do to shut them out? Versus, hey, the game's going to come to me. I can react and I can, rely on my preparation. So I used to always kind of create a mental obstacle for myself, but give them an advantage that they didn't earn or they didn't deserve just because I was in my own head. So I started realizing, and I had a sports psychologist that I worked with back in the day, and they started giving me, okay, like Omar, what makes them so much better than you, and what makes their preparation better than yours. So I had to kind of, I was able to answer those questions and understand the why and kind of reverse engineer it. And then I started realizing, I'm like, man, I could just, if I'm in these situations, I need to be present, have presence of mind of what is making me feel this way, and then from there shift the perspective on what, I guess, the intimidation factor. So that's what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, look, if you're afraid of coming out for crosses, try to figure out why. And if you understand why that fear is coming in, shift the perspective. So for me, let's say, for example, I used to hate working out. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be sore.
You like the
I don't
ice
want to
cream
be
truck,
this.
though. You like that ice cream truck.
No, but I'm like, I don't want to be sore. But I was just like, yeah, but if I work out for 1 week and I'm just sore for that 1 week, and then after that, my body will get used to it, then I'll be fine. So my shifting the perspective of this is a daunting task to, this is doable. I can do this. You know what I mean? So it's, and everybody, there's a cheat code and something that's going to allow us to figure out how to get over those obstacles. But you kind of have to be present in those times where you are feeling down or you are feeling like the mental struggles, for real, that you need to kind of go, okay, I'm not going to run away. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to sulk in it. I'm going to sit into it. Okay, now I can figure out a solution.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to put this out in the comments right there. Shout out to Luis Perdomo from Honduras, who gives a shout out to it. Look at that accent. It's pretty solid, Omar, isn't it? Right there.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
I picked up the Sevillan accent while I'm here. So
I mean, you straight up. Yeah, you straight up sounded like authentic right there. I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
Oh, that was 3 words. Don't ask me for any longer phrases.
Yeah.
I want to bring up this. I want to bring up one last play because everybody's been saying, they're like, okay, cool. Well, it seems like Emily just boxes everything. It seems like she doesn't hold on to everything. And you were saying, about catching and catching and catching. And I want to showcase the confidence and the calmness and recognizing the opportunity. And then when you do have the space, how you can catch that ball. So I'm going to play this clip right here. Once I find it here. And let's see if Emily can walk us through this right here. So simple play into the box, track. Oh, look at that. She caught the ball. She caught the ball nice and clean. Right there. Again, not most exciting play in the world, but if you notice the patience right there, she tracks that ball. She sees it. She sees it. She sees it. She sees that she has open space. She's got a gap to catch that ball. And then she goes for the play, even though there's a player clearly behind you that's apparently trying to do some sort of like touchdown receiver catch for a touchdown type motion, because they were way up there for that ball right there. Can you kind of walk us through just something simple like this?
Yeah, I think the question of whether to box or to catch, again, becomes very personalized between goalkeepers in this situation. I didn't see anyone running into the space. I kind of knew there was a back post runner, but at the same time, I knew that my positioning was good enough to catch it high. And, again, I really didn't have to move very much for that ball. I maybe took a couple steps backward. There wasn't a whole lot of traveling, so it was very easy to keep my body composed enough to catch.
I love that drop step. Look at that drop step. That's clean right there. Boom. See how simple that is? I want kids to see that though, Omar. I want kids to see that because a lot of kids make a mess out of this, don't they?
Yeah, no, and what I loved about it though is that even though, I mean, again, we've the biggest obstacle in my own coaching experience that I've had to get over is trying to tell somebody it has to be done this way, and if it's not done that way, then I'm not going to be happy. And I think that's how I used to be. And I think if you watch this and we talk about not wasting any movements, I would say, yeah, Emily took a step towards the ball, but her improvisation was top class. And I think that's what a lot of the best goalkeepers can do is they put themselves in situations that they may not, I guess, technically, it may not be the tactical way of doing it, but their adjustments in those half a second, millisecond is the reason why you are where you are. And that's why you make good decisions versus somebody who panics in those situations and punches.
Yeah, yeah, and that little drop step right there, Emily, that's all you needed right there. That's all you needed. I know so many kids, because we talked about this on the show. Saskia loves to bring up how kids are so literal. You say either come out or drop, and they think come out means go 6 yards and drop means go all the way inside the goal. But you showcased right there that it's a subtle drop, or it's a subtle step based on that flight of that ball,
Yeah, I think I guess the cliche in football is a game of inches. And I think a lot of the times we hear that context in the field players game, but I think it's applicable to goalkeepers as well. Minute changes in your footwork. Like Omar said, I mean, the first thing that I saw when you played that clip was I took a step way too soon. I definitely thought I could get that higher. But, again, it's figuring out, it's problem solving, right? And I created my own problem. I'm glad I solved it. But, it's taking information as it comes. And I really, really actually like what Omar said about taking the game as it comes to you. And that, I think, takes a lot of the pressure off to make those really big, drastic adjustments, because you can kind of just let muscle memory take over because you've been there, as opposed to thinking you need to do something huge or it's black and white and you have to force it into these little tiny boxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying about that in regards to just, Omar, that's great about taking the game as it comes. We've talked so much about the fact is like, let the game be the teacher, and the scenario is going to dictate. And we've been really big on the show in the last couple of weeks. And I know some goalkeeper coaches have countered their argument in regards to this. And again, there's no right or wrong, but I've personally myself as a goalkeeper coach tried to become much more scenario based with my training sessions, with multiple options available and multiple outcomes, kind of like a choose your own adventure, a game, or a role-playing game or something like that. Okay, I'm becoming really too gamer nerdy right here. But anyway, I'm the dungeon master, guys, as the goalkeeper coach. That's what I am. I'm the dungeon master. And as opposed to pattern goalkeeper training, which I think there's just been so much of that in the past. And what happens with patterns is it doesn't teach kids to take the game as it comes. And so they start trying to play a pattern rather than working out and improvising, like Omar was talking about in those moments right now. How are you doing on time, by the way? Because I know it's like midnight for you or whatever. So.
Oh no, I'm totally good. No worries.
Okay. Before we start wrapping up right here, are there any little like tricks or tips that you would give Emily? Any goalkeepers that are having difficulty tracking a ball all the way across, maybe? The foot speed's been an issue for them. They're trying to make a play too early. Just any sort of little hacks that you've had in your life that has made it easier for you?
I would say I was definitely a goalkeeper who I was the kid who took the step forward first. I definitely had to learn to kind of hold myself steady. And so even if it's just as simple as kind of measuring your breath, as odd as that might sound, to when that forward is going to strike the ball, I find that if I stop my inhale right as they're striking, by the time I've exhaled, I know where the ball's going to go. And it's just a nice metric for me to like make sure like, hey, like just take a second, read the ball first. Don't get too jumpy. Don't know if that would work for anyone else, but for me, it's been a lifesaver.
No, I absolutely love that. It's so funny that you bring that up because Omar, didn't we a couple of years ago, an MLS goalkeeper coach gave that exact same coaching point at an MLS preseason?
I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was crazy.
So,
okay.
Emily, what we're saying is basically is that you should be a first-team goalkeeper coach at the MLS when you're done with your playing career.
Yeah, I mean, give me a call. Give me a call. Whatever.
No, but it's something as simple as that. I love how a lot of times we try to think that it's something so complicated that we have to give these really, really, really profound notes when it can be just something as take a deep breath. I love it. I absolutely love it. Omar, anything you want to add before we wrap?
I think Emily summed it up perfectly. I think, again, when I said earlier about allowing the goalkeepers to have curiosity, and I think, again, if you look at my channel, if you look at anything I do, It's mainly just me being curious about a situation and then posting about it. And in my head, if I allowed, society or the way the game's supposed to be played to dictate my curiosity and what I post, then a lot of people would, I wouldn't get the answers to questions that I think a lot of other people had. And a lot of the posts that I have are things that people will reach out to me and say, dude, I've been thinking about this, but I never actually, found the right way to say it. I'm glad you posted about it, because now I'm reading the comments and there's so many more like-minded people. And I think for me, when I train goalkeepers, whenever they answer a question and if they don't answer it right, I say, hey, why did you come up with that answer? Versus like, hey, why would you even say that? It's like, no, tell me your thought process so I can understand where your curiosity and where your instinctual nature takes you, so that I have a better idea of who you are upstairs. And I think that is what I'm trying to get at now with the situation, is that Emily just told something that worked for her. And if she didn't have curiosity and she just took what her coach told her, she would never come up to this conclusion. And when you're curious, you try new things. When you try new things, you have new answers. And I think that's the biggest thing for us as coaches that we got to really try to implement and encourage.
I love the way you brought that up, and just encourage that curiosity in the kids, and not just also in the kids, but I think encourage that curiosity in the goalkeeper coaches too. And the goalkeeper coaches.
That's what we talked about, though, in terms of like the youth game and situations where we're always thinking about just winning and not development. And I think if it came to development, it's understanding that there's a process and you got to give these kids time to make their mistakes, versus we're trying to feed somebody into the first team and we're only looking for the finished product. And there's a lot of kids who, like with Emily here, for example, who blossom at different ages and they really come to their own as they get older. And as you see with like Buffon, Casillas, all these big time goalkeepers, they haven't gotten better as they've gotten older. They've just gotten smarter, and they've been way more efficient with their movement, way more efficient with their technique, and understanding what their body limitations are. And I think that is what we need to encourage, is that everybody finds a position at different ages, but we got to give them that room, that curiosity to find it on their own.
Yeah, I mean, Omar found it after he got scored on 8 times at 11 years old. And
you get to a point when you realize, wait, did my parents leave early, or do they really just want me to meet them on like across the street? Like, what's going on here? Like, they're trying to get the car before everybody, or they just not want to be seen with me? What's going on here? So you get to a point where you got to grow up.
Oh man, oh my gosh, I can tell you some horror stories. I had a game in college. And Emily, I don't know if you ever had any of these games. I had a game in college that went into double digits. That
really?
was that was rough. That was my go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that was our second leg against Lyon. Maybe they hit 9. Maybe they were just shy of double digits.
Damn.
Yeah, it happens.
but then you got to chase, some of these world-class players who got their jerseys, so it was totally worth it,
Yeah, we got a picture with Wendy Reynard afterwards, and
nice.
She scored like 4 or 5 headers on me between the two, and I was like, listen, I just need to immortalize the fact that I'm like breathing close to you.
Yeah. Now, what you don't know is that right now Renard is over on another podcast discussing the fact that she has Emily Dolan's goalkeeper jersey. So that's
let's perpetuate that rumor. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Em, first off, thanks for taking all this time. And also, second of all, thanks for being an insider. Thanks for being a fan of the show. It's really awesome. Honestly, I'm still a nerd like this. I know Omar is like this as well too. Whenever we reach out to somebody to come on the show and they say that I'm already a fan of the show, it just kind of humbles us, because we kind of go like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're making a difference even with people as high level as yourself, so I'm glad that you're enjoying the content. I'm glad that you're getting something out of it as well too. If anybody out there wants to reach out to you, maybe there's some kids out there who want to know maybe a little bit more about your story, or kind of going through the same issues in regards to not playing a lot and still want to push forward with their career, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
First off, thank you so much for having me. I was really excited when you guys reached out. I'm a kid who, I had coaching once I got a little bit older, but when I was first starting out, I didn't have a goalkeeper coach. Do you guys remember the VHS, like Tony DeChico, How to Be a Goalkeeper videos?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So my mom bought it, and she's like one of the most talented coaches I've ever seen. She can break down a sport like nobody's business. And we would watch that video, and we'd watch like YouTube clips, and then we'd go out to a field for hours and just like try to figure out what the heck they were doing. So no, I think what you guys are doing with your podcast is really great. It's something that I wish I had as a resource when I was a youth player. But as far as reaching out to me, probably the easiest way is through social media. Both of my handles are at EmilyGK19 on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm always open to talking to kids about, what my journey's been like, because I know it's not the most traditional of journeys. And I definitely want to let people know that, even if your journey doesn't look a certain way, you can still get to a high level of play. So I'm always open for discussion on that.
And I think the number one thing that you've really accomplished in your career is that Bill Reno posted you in his rankings on Everybody's Soccer.
Yeah, I almost died. Yeah,
that dude knows like a U9 goalkeeper, like in the second division in the Ukraine. I don't know how he finds everybody. He literally knows every goalkeeper in the world. It's unreal. Obviously, guys, you know that you can reach out to Omar Zeenni at ProGK Academy _ on Instagram. Omar, are you about to launch? Oh no, you got a couple weeks until
yeah,
next
a few more weeks.
Few more weeks. So we'll keep that under wraps until then, guys. Remember, guys, if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, contact at Inside the 18. That's the number 18 media.com or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. I'm back on the comedy circuit, virtual comedy circuit until we can actually tour again. So you can reach out to me at Michael Magid, MAGID, or michaelmagidcomedy.com. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.